Alrighty, welcome to the Farm Rebel Podcast. I'm your host, Cam King, and today's guest is Jim Elizondo of Real Wealth Ranching. Jim is a seasoned rancher, agronomist engineer, and regenerative agriculture expert with over 3 decades of experience transforming land and livestock operations. Jim's journey began when he realized the conventional methods taught in college, chemical fertilizers, herbicides, and expensive feed, were failing both his wallet and his soil. Today, he helps ranchers regenerate their land, increase herd profitability, and simplify operations with nature aligned methods. He's served producers across the globe from Canada to Colombia, and from the mountains to the tropics, on the 4 pillars of real wealth ranching: genetics, grazing, nutrition, and breeding. So let's go ahead and dive into Jim's wealth of knowledge and practical insights as we explore the art and science of ranching done right. Jim, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Cameron. Uh, I like to see things with a holistic view
Mhm.
where we want to integrate the different wholes into a larger whole where they will all work together for the benefit of all. I consider that we humans are an integral part of nature where we use our livestock herbivores to create better and leafier pastures because they will in turn create better and fatter roots, deeper, which will create more soil. Green plants create soil. It's not the other way around. Without green plants, we wouldn't have soil as we know it. And without soil life, that wouldn't have happened. So we want to manage our grazing in such a way that we can increase the leaf to stem ratio in the regrowth to capture more long-lived carbon in our soil. And we need to know when that happens and how. And this has been known now for 12 years. So I want to capitalize on that so everyone else can also benefit. And then we create what I call fat soil, high in soil organic carbon or carbon, long-lived carbon. And that will give you, if you manage well, good body condition in your livestock, which has components of management and genetics. But once you have that, you can make a good profit and have a fat wallet. And that's why I call it the fat wallet ranchers.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. So let's get started. First question for you, Jim, is
Mhm.
so you made the switch from conventional to regenerative ranching methods. Now, what was the first change that you implemented that gave you the confidence that this approach could actually work?
I like that question because that reminds me when I was young. Back in 1990, I bought my first farm. I had to start a cheese and yogurt factory to raise the money to buy my first land. And that was a 300-acre irrigated farm in the tropics. So what I learned first is that I needed to make a profit because the first year I did not make a profit. And ganadero in Spanish means cattleman, but it also means gana dinero. That means you make money, a profit. And I was not making a profit. So my wife came to me and told me, is this a hobby or a business? Yeah, well, a business. So I started studying. And I got this book from New Zealand by McKinnon called From Grass to Milk, where he determined that the most important factor for profits was stocking rate. So I started studying Andrea Wassan grass productivity and others to be able to do a high harvest efficiency because I'm also an accountant. So I knew that without a high harvest efficiency, I couldn't increase my stocking rate because you need to come back sooner if you do a selective grazing than if you do a high harvest efficiency grazing, which now is called non-selective. But over the years, I learned that it had to be put into a program. And now I have even an easier way to follow that in a program so people can understand it easier and apply it without overgrazing. I learned that overgrazing is not severe grazing, but it's regrazing a plant when it's too young, and that depletes its energy reserves and shortens its roots. And that's the cause of desertification and more non-desirable plants taking over. So my focus is on fat roots, strong and deep, and fat cows, fat cows, fat cows, meaning good body condition, so you can make a profit.
What would you say for a rancher who's interested but skeptical about regenerative practices? What's the smallest, lowest risk step that they could take to start seeing results?
I love that question. And I like to help people. So what I do is I have this starter kit where you get the low-hanging fruit first. So the easiest way to improve your cow herd fertility is to have them calving in a short time, no longer than 45 days, when you have abundant green grass. Doing that, if you are calving year-round, you can increase your stocking rate 30 to 40% and lower your cost 30 to 40%. That's a very easy thing to do. And if you do it gradually over 3 to 4 years, you do not lose the cash flow. Do not do it cold turkey because then you will lose your cash flow. And cash flow trumps over capital gains.
Mm.
Okay, now that I said that, the next thing to do is to start deferring paddocks, whole paddocks, the whole year. In most environments, it's best to allow it a third of your property, to allow it to stockpile for the full year, because that is when you create long-lived soil carbon, when you stockpile. It's not when we are grazing the green season, because the root exudates of our grasses will be sugary. And only when they turn to fatty, which happens after the plant is over mature, is when we can fatten soil microbes, and then they can be digested by fungi instead of bacteria, and then they are converted to humus, long-lived soil carbon that lasts over 100 years. If it's done by bacteria, it will last for a few months. And you people listening to this should know something. Bacteria consume humus, while fungi produces humus. When you see your soil get spongy after a long year rest, like when we are deferring for standing hay for the difficult seasons, that's when the soil gets spongy, not when you're grazing in the green season. And that confirms what I just said. When your soil gets spongy, that's when it improves. And when you stockpile, that's when your best species seedlings can establish without being pulled out along with their roots by your returning livestock, like when you do a selective rotational grazing. So that will be the first two steps, very low risk, that you can implement right away.
Can you share some specific numbers on how your input cost changed after transitioning to regenerative practices? Like which expenses went down, and also were there any that went up?
I can give you examples. When you increase stocking rates by doing this instead of by buying inputs, well, the costs are just not there because we do low cost biological methods. So sometimes I will add some feed, or sometimes I will need to feed some protein supplement in the winter, which, by the way, equates to buying a round bale for $10 to $15. So that's much cheaper than feeding hay. And you can save up to $300 per cow, or cheap equivalent, per year. Okay. So you do that and you start getting better solar panel, more growth points per square yard, and better leaf to stem ratio in the regrowth, because saliva inoculated near the growth points, the crown of the plant, gives a much faster regrowth, up to 80% faster. So I can tell you examples. In North Wales, a 750 cow raised dairy on 300 hectares, that's 1 cow per acre, they were able to stop chemical or synthetic fertilizers. And I have it on my webpage. It's for free. And it's a PDF called How to Win Your Land Off synthetic fertilizers, but you need to do it gradually. Anything in nature is done gradually. Any change you do, even a change of ration or a change of grass species, when you're grazing different paddocks, needs to be done gradually, or you're going to lose some money.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
these people were applying 400 pounds of synthetic nitrogen per acre per year, and now none without losing productivity. And now the
Wow.
soil is not hard. Now the soil can have a chance to become spongy.
Piggybacking off of that, so what's been your most profitable regenerative practice, and specifically the one that required as minimal investment as possible?
If we need to define the one thing that will propel you to success, that will be create long-lived soil carbon.
Hmm.
And that happens when you stockpile. That's why I said that's your first thing to start doing. Start stockpiling, even if you don't believe it works. Even if you only live a few acres, do it. Or just walk along the side of the road. Walk along your drainage ditches. You will feel in your feet that it's spongy. And that's where it grows the best. That's why it's not magic, it's fungi to bacteria ratio.
Yeah, I think this is just a really important topic because most of the conversations that I have with either farmers or ranchers who are interested in regenerative practices, their main concern is transition, right? How do I transition and how do I do it without losing money? How do I, in many instances, it's how do I do it without losing everything? And so these are super like,
I have a friend, I have a very good friend in the mountains of Chihuahua that runs 1,000 pairs by himself and his wife. That's it. And he moves them once a month. It only rains for a month or two over there, so most of the year is dry. By doing this, what I'm saying, stockpiling, he has increased his stocking rate to double over conventional grazing. Of course, he has superb genetics. He's been selecting for Black Angus. He's been selecting for good body condition for 30 years. Now, with the Total Grazing Academy, you can do that in 5 years. But he took 30 years. He didn't know. But now, his artesian wells are flowing again. His grass productivity is more than double. And his streams are running year-round instead of only in the wet season.
hmm,
So he's a
nice.
happy man. This means that you do not need to do the 4 breaks per day. In fact, I am a dairy nutritionist also with 20 years experience. So I can tell you, the rumen works in batches, 4 to 5 batches per day. That's why 4 breaks a day gives you the best animal performance and harvest efficiency. If you cannot do that, then go to once a day. If you cannot do that, then not go to once every third day or once every week. Go to once every 2 to 3 weeks or a month. And that will give you best results in your livestock. I am very different than most racing people out there. But
Hmm.
I take nutrition into account where we focus on health, then maximum performance, daily gain or whatever, and then conversion efficiency, how many tons of grass it takes to produce the beef.
So you talk a lot about the four pillars of real wealth ranching. I'm just wondering, could you walk us through a concrete example of how these pillars work together in a real world operation?
Yeah, they do work together because each one of them supports the other to create your platform from where you grow upwards. Okay, let's start with the total grazing program. Let's say you can move them once a day. That would be great. And you start to manage your property in 3 sections. So you grade your first section in the green season, your best 1/3 of your acreage to get the maximum performance per animal possible. That's your focus in the green season. The second section will be how do you say it in English? Sorry, I'm in Mexico right now.
I speak Spanish, so try it in Spanish. Maybe I can help you.
Ador, Joker, Comodín.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, the second section will be there to be used when necessary to avoid overgrazing in the first section, paddocks. So when you start on your green section in spring, and that's 1/3 of your property, and then you need to return to your first paddock. You've been doing a total graze, high harvest efficiency grazing, non-selective grazing, with focus on maximum daily gain in your livestock. Okay? Then you finish that section and you come back to the first paddock and it's not yet ready to be grazed. This will depend if they are warm season perennials or cool season forages, and I explained that in my online courses. Okay, so you come back and it's not ready. So you go to the second section, which is the buffer section, and you start grazing there. And that's what we did in the UK, in North Wales. Let's say you're halfway through that second section. The third section is still growing because that has not been grazed, and the first section is recovering. Let's say now it rains again, and the first section is ready to be regrazed. So you stop advancing to your second section, the buffer section, and you go to your first section to continue grazing there because now it's well recovered and you do not shorten the roots. Doing this in the drought they had in 2022, they were able to maintain milk production while their neighbors had to start feeding hay in June because it didn't rain from May and June. And then when it rained again in July, my client had a lot of green grass and stockpile grass and hay when the neighbors ran out of hay and had short roots, creating a man-made drought. So that's the first thing we need to minimize, overgrazing. And then I would advise to start with the 3 sections. That's the very best. It's a breakthrough I just came out in public. I've been trialing for 14 years in different environments around the world, and it's the best way to manage this.
So that's the grazing. Now we're going to talk how do the rest of these pillars all work together. So,
Sorry, I got carried away.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. As you start to do this, you learn that some of your cows or ewes will maintain good body condition in the dry or cold winter, grazing stockpile grass than others. And this is called nutritional adaptation. So you need to select for that. And you need to select for conversion efficiency. And you need to select for overall adaptation. And you need to select for masculinity in bulls and femininity in females. So we do all of that in the Adapted Genetics and Selection Guidelines online course. Because by doing that, you can harvest more of what is out there, especially in the brown season, and that's what determines your stocking rate. How many animals you can maintain in good body condition in the brown season. That's why it's so important to start at the same time that you start to grazing, selecting your bulls or rams differently. And when will you see the results? From the very first calf crop or lamb crop. You will see the difference because now you're selecting according to nature. Okay. And it's important to select from your best females and not from outside the herd because of epigenetics. Then the optimal calving season or birthing season. That allows you 30 to 40% higher stocking rate because stocking rate, the number of productive animals you can maintain per farm or ranch per year, determines your profits. And then I go in depth into nutrition when grazing because we need first health in our livestock, then maximum performance in the green season, and to maintain body condition in the brown season at very high stocking rates, and then we can get good conversion efficiency because we are not only producing more tons of grass per farm or ranch, but we are converting them more efficiently to sellable products. And that's what gives you the short, medium, and long-term profits. We want maximum profits for today and for tomorrow's.
Mhm.
So we need to increase long-lived soil carbon, and that happens in the stockpile area. So and then we alternate these 3 sections every year. But to get the best results, you need to have the 4 pillars, and then you start to build on that to go even further. And that's how we have achieved 5 and 8 times higher stocking rate and grass productivity. It's not magic. We don't have them go hungry. we produce more grass. Okay.
As we know, many ranchers struggle with feed costs, particularly in drier climates, like where I live here in Utah in the Mountain West. So, what are some of your top strategies, let's say, for reducing dependency on purchase feed while maintaining or improving animal performance?
Okay, by managing in three sections, which is one of my master classes. On my Fat Wallet Rancher membership, I give a master class every month. By managing this way, you focus on the best performance in the green season, and at the same time, because of the high harvest efficiency grazing, you achieve a large acreage of stockpile standing hay to maintain your costs down in the brown season.
Hmm.
By alternating this area, you improve your property, long-lived soil carbon every year. Every 3 years, you do it for your whole property. What changes in a place like Utah is a lower sucking rate than, let's say, in Florida, but you also give your paddocks or your sections 4 months for each section or 6 months for each section, depending, like if you're in Nevada, a high desert, you need longer. Utah, maybe the same. I haven't been in Utah yet, but in Nevada, yes. And I was in Manitoba, Canada 3 days ago with snow and all that. So we are successfully implementing the three sections concept there too.
Let's talk about drought conditions. So, what's your approach to grazing during drought conditions, and how do you maintain flexibility while also protecting the soil?
Yeah, yeah. We need to first think about your grass plants. If you overgraze them in a drought, let's say you start with section one, the green season grazing area, and then it turns dry. Uh, if you were to return and regraze the regrowth when it's short and leafy but not yet well recovered, you will shorten the roots, setting yourself for a man-made drought. So instead of doing that, you go to section two. Let's say you finish section two and you're in Utah and you're doing 6 months per section. You finish section two and no rain. So it hasn't rained for a year. And that happens in places like the Chihuahua Desert or in Saudi Arabia, in the Sahara Desert. I have clients there too, students. Okay. Then by then, before you finish the second section, the buffer section, you know you're in a drought, in a very bad drought, the worst in the century. So you need to get rid of some cattle or find some ways to maintain them, lease land or whatever. So this also helps you to make decisions easier. On the contrary, you have a very good year and you only graze the first section and maybe half of the second section, and you go back to the first section. By this time of the year, and you quantify how many cow rations you can harvest with your stockpile or standing hay acreage, then you know you need more livestock. When would you get them? I would suggest that when it's more convenient for you, but the best time will be once the green season starts or you're close to green season. If you have good snow, then that's when to buy them because they will weigh less and cost less. So this is a way to make decisions. This is a way to avoid overgrazing. This is a way to manage a drought without creating short roots.
Can you explain your grazing calculation process? So, how do you determine paddock sizes and timing, rotation timing?
You mean when we are grazing 4 breaks a day or once a day?
Yeah, yeah. How do you determine the size of the paddock? Is there an easy formula?
Yeah, the size of the break. You see how many people get confused with how many hundred, oh yeah, 5 or 1,000 cow units per acre and things like that. That's the wrong approach. Have you heard about elegant simplicity or optimizing simplicity?
Sure.
I love that. I always want to optimize simplicity. So I give them the size break that I calculate in my eye to last them for an hour and a half if I am moving them every 2 hours, or for a full day if I am moving them per day, once a day. Then I go and observe them. Observe them. If they are full in the in the gut field, that's between the last rib and the hip bone, there forms a triangle. If that triangle is full at the end of the day, I'm good. If they are not, then I need to give them another break if I'm giving them for a day. And if I'm giving them once a day, I give them the next break right there. I don't wait because every day they do not get full, you lose that day's performance. If you're moving them once a month, then you need superb genetics that can take the grass down and achieve 90% harvest efficiency without losing body condition. So there is a caveat. You need to do this. But you can start always graze as hard as your genetics allow without them losing performance. I always concentrate on my worst animals. I want them fat. If they are not in good body condition, they will not be productive. And if they are not productive, I might as well just sell them. If you're not going to sell them and you're going to keep them, don't allow them to lose body condition because that's where the money is. People forget this. That's why I say fat cows, fat cows, fat cows.
So speaking of genetics and breeding, what specific traits do you select for in your breeding program? And how has this selection changed your herd over time?
You must know that I have been selected the Machona herd in Florida, the largest Machona herd left in the world since 2012. And now it's the best herd in the world. I've been selecting first. If you need to find the one thing that's most important when you select, is the over full animal package. A cow and a bull should look like it's about to burst. That means that their relative intake, their appetite, plus their adaptation is high enough to maintain the animal and have a lot of energy excess to put on growth and fat. I look at the more specific things, which I explained, but that's the number one. When you go into a pen full of bulls or cows, you can easily identify the best ones. And those will be the ones that look with the over full animal package. And then I select for masculinity in bulls and femininity in females. And that has to do with the growth hormones and the sexual hormones, estrogen in females and testosterone in bulls, and sexual dimorphism. A bull should weigh 50% at least more than the females. When you see herds that do not have this, that means they do not have sexual dimorphism and they have been selecting for EPDs or whatever, but not like nature selects. In nature, there were 100 bulls to 100 cows, right? When humans were not around. How did they determine which bulls will breed the cows? So let's think that way. Let's think what would nature have done and do the best to manage or help nature without cruelty, of course, because we are humans and we're called to be stewards of the land and the lives.
So this next question, we touched on it just a little bit at the very beginning, but I'm wondering if we could go a little bit further in. And it's how have you adapted your breeding calendar to align with nature cycles, and what impact does this have on profitability?
It's the first step that I will suggest to new people to start doing gradually because let's say you have a year-round calving season, bulls are with the cows year-round, or you have two calving seasons, one in spring or in winter, which is the worst time to calve, and one in the fall. Okay, uh, I will start doing it gradually. You take first the worst 6 months of the year that you don't want them to calve in, and you take the bulls out so your cows are not calve in those 6 months that are the worst time of the year, winter, drought, whatever. Next year, you shorten that to 4 months, next year to three, then to two, and then to 45 days. When? When should they calve? When you have the most and the highest quality grass, or if you have adaptive genetics a little earlier in dry environments, so you can have a higher winning weight. Okay, we want high winning weights. We do not settle for low winning weights. Then, how much will that save you? In my experience, that allows you to increase your stocking rate 30 to 40% just by doing that, even with your type of grazing, and allows you to save on cost, supplement, labor, and hay 30 to 40%. So that's a very low cost way of increasing your stock and rate your profits.
All right, so what are the most common mistakes that you see ranchers make when they're transitioning to regenerative practices, and how can they avoid those?
The first big mistake they do is to do everything at once and not gradually. We humans and cattle are creatures of habit. So if we change the routine all at once and we want to do everything at once, it's dangerous. And the most common mistake I've seen is that people do not take online or ongoing coaching. When I did on-site courses since 1913, I've been doing on-site courses in the US and before on-site courses, sorry, and before that in Mexico and in other countries like, like in Maui, Hawaii, in the US also. Okay. When they only took the course and tried to do it by themselves, they were having 3 to 5% success rate in implementing this. When I started the online courses in 2020 and started giving the continuing education and coaching, success rate went up to 60%. And I am trying to improve all the time on that. And I'm trying to be a better teacher because it's one thing is to know how to do it yourself, and another thing is to teach it in such a way that everyone can understand and implement. And for that, I have found that ongoing coaching is essential. So that's the first mistake they've done.
So that's kind of a two-part, right? They try to do everything at once and then they fail to maintain online coaching or consistent support.
Well, I didn't have online coaching before, so they just try to implement without, and then they come to a little hurdle, and then they make a big mistake that makes them lose a lot of money, thousands or hundreds of thousands in some instances, and then they become discouraged. So I want to keep the momentum going so they have win after win after win, so they get to see the results in their own land, and then they will not be discouraged when they make mistakes. We all make mistakes when we start a new venture. The secret is to not allow that to hurt our profits.
So when ranchers are telling you that they're struggling with, let's say, low gains, what's your process for helping them solve that without reaching for conventional inputs?
I mean, low daily gain?
Yes.
Okay, that's because many times, and I've seen this in many places that they claim that they graze in a program, they do not have a central water alley to move the herd through the ranch to keep them to what I call the art of jumping paddocks. That's not my invention. It was André Bozan in 1960. That means you need to be in your best, highest quality paddock all the time, even in the brown season. So when they don't have that, and we say, oh, the paddock that is 10 miles away is your best paddock. How long will it take you to get there because they don't have the water alley? And they say, oh, 2 months. In 2 months, that the quality will be lost. But if they had the alley, they could be there in an hour. So that's another big mistake. They don't want to put in the infrastructure because they don't know these things. And that's a huge mistake.
So kind of a follow-up to that is, so when clients tell you that maybe they're struggling with, let's say, parasites, what's the process for solving that?
Well, so we do it gradually. Wean your herd of dewormers, chemical dewormers, because we want to create parasite-resistant genetics, not poison-resistant parasites. So we need to do it gradually instead of dosing your whole herd twice a year or whatever you've been doing. Start saving that money and only those animals that cannot accept a low-level challenge of parasitism. The drier your environment, the easier it is. In the tropics, I have not worn my cattle for 20 years my brother for 30. In Utah, you can start from day one. It's so easy. In Florida, we never deworm, and we have a very high challenge of liver fluke. By doing this, you create a very parasite-resistant herd that will perform anywhere. And then you get, by word of mouth, your genetics get high prestige.
What are your favorite low-cost ways to monitor the soil health improvement?
If you can get yourself, this will not be low cost, but easy. People like easy. Get yourself a drone and take pictures at always the same height of your paddocks, and then you will see how your not only your leaf to stem ratio will be, but how much leaves you are producing per square yard per year. And the easiest way is to get yourself one of those apps that I'm going to start promoting in English, where you speak to it through WhatsApp and it goes to the cloud and then puts everything on a spreadsheet in your computer, and you can monitor how many cow rations you're harvesting per paddock or per acre in your farm. As your cow rations harvested per acre per year grow, you know you're on the right track. If they do not, you know you're in the wrong track. And the other one, you ask about soil health, sponginess of the soil, and your best species coming back.
Mm.
When you make your soil spongy, it will hold more water, and your best species require more water. Your soil starts to act or behave like if it's been raining more and as if you've been fertilizing, because organic matter releases nitrogen and moisture to your plants on a demand way.
Have you found any ways to capture premium prices for regenerative raised livestock? Or maybe another way to ask it is like, what marketing approaches work best to be able to capitalize on these healthier
Do
and
you,
improved animals?
do you want to direct sell to people? Do you have the time to do that? If you have the time to do that, sell it as regeneratively raised beef. But I have found that you need to devote your full time to that if you want to be successful. Because I do not want to do that and stop raising livestock. I prefer to sell breeding stock to like-minded people that that want to have this type of livestock in their farms or ranch. Then I invite them, come to my farm and look at the very high stocking rate I'm carrying, and my cattle are looking wonderful. Then they want to buy heifers and bulls. And that gives you double the profit per acre than even after having 5 times more stocking rate. You see, when you double your stocking rate, it's normal to triple your profits. When you
Mhm.
double your stocking rate doing this, it's normal to triple your profit. So what happens when you go 5 times higher stocking rate and you start selling genetics?
So looking at current trends in the cattle industry, what changes should ranchers be preparing for, and how can regenerative practices help them stay ahead of those changes?
Prices will come down. As they went up, they will come down. We are in a beef cow price cycle that goes up and down. So we know it will come down. How can we prepare for that? Producing more with less. Over the years, the last 30, 40 years, the price we get for our cattle have not increased at the same rate as the prices of inputs. So the first thing we need to do is wean ourselves from inputs, especially high costly inputs. Genetics and management and our knowledge are essential for that, because we can produce more for less when we increase our stocking rate just by raising according to nature and to basic plant physiology. Many people forgot basic plant physiology. Green leaves produce energy through photosynthesis, while stems consume energy by respiration. So when we raise selectively, we leave more stems behind, sucking the energy of the roots and crowns where they are held as an energy reserve, and create a lower energy regrowth. Even the green leaves are lower in energy than if you take all of a well recovered plant that will give you a more vigorous regrowth of leaves, just like when you make hay.
Jim, you've given us just like some incredible tactical things that people can be implementing right away. Um, if there was one thing that you would want to tell, ranchers who are considering transitioning to regenerative agriculture practices, um, yeah, what would you say? What would you tell them?
I will tell them learn from people that are doing it themselves with their own economically successful ranch or farm, and steer away from people that are teaching because they learned from someone else but never did it themselves under economical constraints. For example, there are many destocking drought strategies given by people that have not done it themselves. Because of human nature, us cattlemen that know that the number of cows we maintain per year determines our profits, when we're in a drought, we hold and hold, hoping that it will rain. So, because they do not take human nature into account, we end up with a wreck. So, when you and you do not need to destock most of the time when you do it this the way I propose, even at very high stocking rates, because our main focus is to avoid overgrazing. And we have a huge amount of standing hay, even in droughty places like Sahara Desert, where we sometimes don't get any rain for a full year, and we need to plan for that. So yeah, that would be my advice. Go to people that are doing this economically successful and not to the other.
Okay, that's amazing. Where can people find you?
I have my webpage is www.rwranching.com. We will have a Black Friday sale starting on November 25th with a huge discounts for the Total Grazing Academy. That includes the 4 courses. And I am on their Facebook at Real World Ranching. I have a YouTube channel that is free. A lot of over 130 videos there for free under Real World Ranching by Jim Elizondo. I am on Instagram, and you can send us an email. There in my webpage, there's a lot of freebies that you can get for your and see that what I'm saying is true, and you can try them on your own property.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been incredibly enlightening, and I think it's going to be really helpful for our listeners. So I just want to thank you for all the work that you're doing out in the industry, all the teaching, the education that you're providing, the consulting. It really matters, and it helps the industry tremendously. So thanks for all that you do.
Very much, Cameron, and thank you for inviting me.